All right, Marika Herrera?
Herrer.
Herrera, all right. And where are you from?
South Africa, sir.
And you grew up speaking what language?
Afrikaans, which is sort of a derivative of Dutch, but it's a language all on its own.
Okay. So if we were to land in your country, what are things that we would see that are very different from what we're used to?
We're a lot more spontaneous in the way we read, for instance. Here, well, it's not necessarily, like, probably more just GBS culture, but I was telling some friends that you would hug someone that even if you just remotely know them. And this is just Afrikaans culture, and there's some varieties in that as well. Kiss greet is not uncommon, even if you're not related. And also, there's a lot more respectable terms that you use to address someone. For instance, we will not call anyone around about 10 years older than us by their first name. We will always use the term, either if we don't know them, we'll call them sir or ma'am. And then we will, if we do know them, we'll call them uncle or aunt in Afrikaans, which will be but you will never use their first name. It's considered very rude and disrespectful. You also never refer to them as you. We have a more formal term for that. Just then that also, and you will never refer to God as you. It will probably be more like thee or thou, that form that we will use in prayer. And in a letter, in any letter, you will always use the formal term. So we're a lot more formal in the way that we address people. We have a lot of fine little etiquette things, from the way you dine at a table, to the way you greet, to the way, you're addressing someone, or just the places you go, the way you dress to certain places. I remember coming here for the first time and seeing people at Walmart that was dressed in ways some people wouldn't even dress at home back then, if they're at their own house. So you go out your house, it's an occasion, and you dress up for that. And so, yeah, that's just very few things.
And for church, you would dress up a lot,
yes.
right? Okay. What are some other things that you saw as strange when you got here?
Wow. There was, for instance, I come from a countryside where you stand up when the sun comes up and everything shuts down by 9 o'clock. The stores are rarely open past 6. And when it's very expensive stores, just for then if you really need something. And so when I came here and heard Walmart's open 24/7, it was a ridiculous concept to me. And for instance, we have late night here, which everything starts at 11. By that time, you're a long ways at home. At home, you're in bed already and sleeping probably for an hour or 2 hours. And so that was a major adjustment for me. Like I said, the formality, the power distance is a lot more. You will not socially interact with your superiors very easily. In a Christian culture, it's more relaxed because there's not that superiority structure. But in secular, for instance, at schools, at universities, you rarely ever come on social terms with your professors, or president is unheard of, for instance.
So what kind of things do you feel like you changed on, or even decided to change on while you were here?
Well, I was told 2 things before I left home: never to come back with an American accent, and never to come back with an American husband. I'm clear on both. But and so there's a few things that I noticed more. So, for instance, I had to change in my time. For instance, not that I get up later, but I stay up later in order to have some sort of social life or even get things done. So I had to change that. I had to change the terminology I use, because British English terms people don't always understand here, so I had to use their words. And so when I go back home, they say speak like an American with a British accent, which is very interesting. And so little things like that, I had to make the change in order for the people around me to understand.
Now your country is very diverse with cultures, right?
Yes, it is.
Tell us about that a little bit.
I told you earlier about not really having a big culture shock coming to a country for the first time in my life outside of my own country, because stepping out of your front door sometimes is a culture shock all over itself. Where I go, for instance, you go to the store, you rub shoulders with people from the Shangaan culture, from the Sotho culture. This is all native Zulu. I'm English, which is also different from mine. So in everyday interaction, you will have contact with at least 3 to 5 cultures, minimally. So it is very interesting. For instance, when we go on vacation, every, say, 100 miles from where we live is a completely different tribe of natives which will have their own traditions, their own language. So it's literally information overload sometimes. And then within my own culture, the northern culture and the southern Afrikaans culture is completely different as well. So it is a very rich experience to live there. And you pick up some things from different cultures that's not necessarily your own. For instance, I'm used to not looking a superior directly in the eye because that's a native thing. And so in order to be more acceptable to them, that's what I learned on. So it was really hard for me to come here and look them straight in the face because they would think you're not honest or you're not listening to them if you don't look them straight in the eye. So there's a lot of little things. And it's very interesting. Never a dull moment for sure living there.
And polygamy is practiced in some of the cultures in
Yes.
your country, right?
Yes, that's still traditional native culture. My culture is not acceptable by any means. Like I mentioned, even our president has 4 wives. So, and that's very common practice, especially in the Zulu culture. It's very much still, which is more the southern eastern native culture. It's like the dominant one.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that the Zulus are practically a majority in the country, or at least a large.
Yeah, they have a very large influence, not just being in numbers, but because of their earlier history, their kingdom was the largest and strongest native kingdom in South Africa. So they had a lot of cultural influences on the others. The others were subservient to them a lot of times, to their kings. So they still have that mentality. And for instance, our president is a Zulu, not because he's a Zulu that he's president, but they have a very big influence in the native culture.
So your country has had to learn to live with a lot of different, very influential cultures at the same time.
Yeah, and then also with slavery, we have a lot of like the Malaysian culture that came in, the Indian culture that came in. We also have several different Europeans that kind of came together in Afrikaans, which is Dutch, German, and French. And so we formed our own culture. And we also have a lot of Chinese influence recently, Arabic influence recently. So beyond our own people, natives to the country, you have a horde of other people that live there and you commonly get in contact with.